We're going to create a new appointment, and there are several different fields. One of the things that you'll notice is that many of these fields, pretty much all these fields really, except for one or two of them, are part of the traditional calendar that comes with iOS. One thing that I will mention is the iOS calendar will populate week calendar, so there's no concern in terms of having to go in and re-enter a bunch of appointments. And week calendar will also back populate to your iOS calendar. So what that means in essence is you can enter an appointment in either place and it will show up in both places. So to create a new appointment, there's several different making cognitive connections that are involved. Again, attention to detail is pretty much involved in everything. Visual similarities and differences, planning, categorization, decision making, and problem solving. So there's a bunch of different fields here. We have the title field, location, start and end, repeat, invitees, alert, calendar, availability, etc. So again, many of these fields are what you're going to see in the traditional calendar app. So let's go back to week calendar then, and we're going to create a new appointment. So this is the add event screen in week calendar. You'll see it has the option to add a title, so I'm going to go ahead and tap here, and I'm just going to put test here so that we can know that that's what I'm doing. We have a location option if we want. What we can do is we can type in an address, or we can find an address within our calendar or within our contacts, etc. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on that because there's so many other things that I want to show you. We can tap on the start and end. This is very similar to, again, the traditional calendar. So here's my start. If I want to change the date, I will just tap my finger and either roll up or roll down on this particular thing. If I want to change the time, I'm going to tap up or tap down or roll down, etc. The one thing that in terms of problem solving as a skill that I have seen many people do is accidentally with your finger or your arm or something, people often go from AM to PM and don't do that intentionally. And so this is something that's really important for us to pay attention to, because if we set something and we think it's set for 11:50 AM and accidentally it gets set for 11:50 PM, that could be a bit of an issue. So not only would you miss your appointment, but also you'd be probably woken up. So you'll see here I've kind of scrolled to the word today. One other thing I want to show you, which is again quite interesting and a little bit different from the calendar appointment. You'll notice yesterday, yesterday's date, because I had something else going on yesterday at this time that I've got identified here, you'll see it says one overlapping event. That's a really handy feature. I can't tell you how many times on the traditional calendar program that I have potentially overbooked myself or double booked myself because it didn't give me any kind of hint that I was doing that. So I always had to be very careful to check and verify that I wasn't double booking myself. This app actually tells me that I have overlapping events as soon as I start adding the event to my schedule. So that's a really great feature. I'm going to come back up here and we'll just put something like 10 o'clock. Notice that if I had it at 9 o'clock for today, that's what time the webinar started, and so therefore I have an overlapping event that is identified. So I'm going to put this at 10 o'clock. You can choose to do an all-day appointment if you want. I'm going to go ahead and tap on Done now. Another feature that is extremely helpful in this particular app is the repeat feature. We know, hopefully, if you're using an iOS system device, you'll know that in fact the calendar program has some very specific options for repeatability of appointments, and they're not always the most convenient options, and they're limited. So this particular app actually allows us to do a daily repeat, so repeat every day, every 2 days, etc. It also gives us the option, let me let it catch up with me here. It also gives us the option of doing a weekly repeat. This is something that I tend to use quite often, where I will say I'm going to do something on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and so I can just turn on each one of those days. Another option that I have is I can say repeat every week, so I can say every 2 weeks, every 6 weeks, etc. So there's a lot of different options. We certainly don't have time to go through all of them, but I wanted to sort of show you what some of the options are. Also, you can do a monthly repeat, which is quite nice because I can say I want to do the 27th day of each week or each month, sorry, or I can say I want to do the third Friday or the fourth Friday. Again, that's very handy because in the traditional case, you would have to go in and every fourth Friday enter in an appointment. And in this particular case, you can enter it in one time, and that will take care of it for you. So if I say every fourth Friday, I'll go ahead and just say done, leave that there. You'll see here it says monthly every fourth Friday. They also have a yearly option that I won't show you, but you can certainly go in and try and check that out. And then they also have a rolling event option, which is kind of interesting. Rolling events will automatically advance to the next day unless you identify that you have completed those. So those are just some of the options available for the repeat feature. I can also say that I want a repeat feature to end after a certain period of time. I'm a teacher, and so let's say I have a meeting that happens the fourth Friday of every month, and it happens for 9 months, and then I have some time off. So in that particular case, I would just go in and choose an end repeat date, and at that point in time, I wouldn't have to worry about going in and stopping that repeat. It would just automatically stop on whatever date I identified. So that's kind of a really neat feature. Invitees is something that's available within the traditional calendar. Basically what you can do is tap on that. You can choose an invitee from your contacts list, and that person will receive a notice that they've been invited to a particular event. That can be very handy if you're scheduling a doctor's appointment or something like that. I actually use it because I have theater tickets and they come to me, so my friends that I go with, I get the tickets and the dates, and then I invite all my friends that go with me using this calendar. So I put it in one time and then it will automatically go to them and populate their calendars, which is pretty nice. Another option here is the alert. The alert feature is basically the bell or the whistle or whatever it is you choose to go off to remind you to get ready for or to attend an event. And the standard alert features are a problem, in my opinion, on the traditional calendar. Basically, they give you a 5-minute warning, a 15-minute warning, a 30-minute warning, etc. But there is a finite number of options, and again, they're not always the most convenient or the most appropriate for that particular situation. So this particular app allows us to set a custom alert. So if you tap on Set Custom Alert, you'll notice here I can now have complete freedom over how frequently or at what point in time I want to be reminded of a particular event. So in this particular case, instead of an hour or a day, I need an hour and 15 minutes in order to be reminded. So I would go ahead and say that, and I will say done. And I can also have a second alert. So you can use this feature in a number of different ways from a cognitive perspective. Let's say that you need to get ready to go somewhere, start getting ready to go somewhere about an hour and 15 minutes before you need to leave. And then let's say that you set a second alert, in this particular case for maybe 15 minutes, and I can use the standard default for that, or one of the standard options. And so now an hour and 15 minutes before I need to leave, it'll go off reminding me that I should start getting ready. And the second alert's going to be 15 minutes before, and that's just sort of my, okay, it's time to start getting everything ready to walk out the door. Unfortunately, they don't allow you to sort of name the alert, so I can't name an hour and 15 minutes before. I can't have an alert that pops up that tells me that I need to start preparing. That's one disadvantage, but I'm not aware of too many apps that actually have that particular feature. So this app also has the traditional calendar options. So if you'll look here, these are the iCloud calendars that I have set up. It's not always convenient and oftentimes confusing for people to set up multiple iCloud calendars. or multiple calendars on their computer. So I'm not as crazy about that, although up until now that was the only option that we had. You'll see here we can identify availability. It'll say either busy or free. There's really no distinction in that. Sorry, that went by really fast. There's really no distinction between busy and free. It basically doesn't show up any differently on the screen. You can put a URL for, let's say, a business that you're going to if you want. You can also put notes. I always encourage individuals to incorporate notes into their events. It may be if they're scheduling a doctor's appointment to write down some notes of questions that they might have, or if they're going to a movie to write down maybe the people that they're going to meet at the movie or the movie that they're going to go to. Notes can be very, very handy as a memory compensation technique. The last two options are the two that are really different as well from the traditional calendar. So up until now, we've had to create multiple calendars and then use color coding to represent the various calendars that were there. Now what we can do is we can actually custom color each and every appointment. This is a great lesson in categorization skills, because what we'd want to do is we'd want to say all of our, let's say, doctor's appointments are going to be in green. And so you sort of have to establish a habit, but that will help you to categorize your particular calendar. So if I said something about this particular test appointment, I want to show up in green, I can do that. And now when I go out of this, hopefully we'll see that this particular appointment has been assigned a color of green. And again, what that does is that helps us sort of categorize our different appointments. We can go in and we can see how many doctor's appointments we've had pretty quickly because of the color coding. And then the last feature here is to add contacts. So if I say I want to add a contact, the nice thing about this is it allows me to go in and to add a contact for someone, and that information, either the phone number or the address or the name or whatever, will show up. If I tap on add contact here, I'm going to go ahead and, my poor friend Ed is always the one that gets this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add Ed, and I'm going to say this is his email. And so what's going to happen when I say done is I have one contact here. When I say done again to sort of finalize my appointment, now one thing you should always do is go back up and make sure that you have everything entered in the way that you want it to be entered in. I'm going to go ahead and tap on done. And if we come to the 27th, we see there's my test appointment. We see that I have a reminder set. We see that this is a repeating appointment because of our little recycle arrows. And if I tap on the little arrow here, we'll see that there's an alert set for an hour and 15 minutes before and then 15 minutes before. In my notes, it gives me Ed's email address so that I can very quickly email him if I want to. I would put his phone number in there. I could quickly call him if I was using a phone. If I want to, I can also go in and edit the appointment. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my PowerPoint presentation real quick because the next slide talks